Hey guys, this is Julian of Julian Gray Media. Welcome to this month's Fix Your Project stream, the show where I fix your projects that you send me over on Patreon. I have some time today, so if you want to submit any projects during the stream, you can do so over on patreon.com/JulianGray. And I think we only have 2 to work on today, maybe 3 if the permissions are updated. Somebody sent in a link that didn't load. So if you want to send in any last-minute submissions, go ahead and do that over on Patreon. So this show, I fix your projects that you send me over on Patreon. If you're interested in submitting anything, you can go over to patreon.com/JulianGray and submit your projects or be in the queue for next month's stream. We also do a fun little get-together every month, where all of the members of the community get together and we have a feedback circle, which is a lot of fun. We all review each other's songs, which is a great time. So, yeah, let's go ahead and get this thing started. I don't want to harp on the beginning for too long, but if you have any time after this call at 1 p.m. Pacific time, we're going to do a little meetup call over on Discord, discord.gg/JulianGray. And if you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe, as always, so you don't miss out on future videos. So let's go ahead and select our first song of the day. This will be, let's go ahead and pull it up. I'm not sure exactly what it's called. I have it on my desktop in the folder. We have Bring It Back and Outpost. Now, you guys decide which track should we work on first. I think we go to Bring It Back, to be honest. Let's go ahead and do that. I'm assuming he wants us to open Bring It Back, Fix Your Project stream version. So we'll go ahead and open this, and we'll see if we can go off without a hitch this time. Make sure my audio is running. All right. Loading into Ableton here. Hopefully we don't have any issues today. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. I see we got a lot of viewers populating over on YouTube. Welcome, guys, and on Twitch there's a few. Welcome on YouTube and Twitch. Hope you guys are having a great day today. This early Sunday. If you guys think of a better time for me to do these streams, let me know. I'm always taking in feedback from the community and considering that when I'm planning these out. So let me pull this up so there's a little bit less on the screen here. Maybe I can pull this over. Danny, I got your submission, but your Google Drive link was not working, so you're going to have to allow me to access it, and I can pull that in towards the end of the stream. All right, first record is called Bring It Back. Let me just make sure my sound is routed through correctly. I believe it is. And you guys can let me know if you can hear this on your side as well. So let's go ahead and give this thing a listen. This is our first track, Bring It Back. I'm not sure who sent this in. I will let you know afterwards. I will pull up the name. If it is your track, let us know in the chat so that everybody will know. All right, let's go ahead and play this thing. Hey, Chris, welcome to the stream. All right. So far, so good. Sounding really good, man. Enjoying myself listening to this. All right. Cool foundation, man. I really like this idea. There's a few things that I would change immediately that would make a huge difference on this one. One of the main things is that there's not a lot of sidechain, if any. I noticed that I'm missing your shaper box, so it's probably contributing to that. There's not a lot of pump between your kick and your bass, and it's really hurting your track. It's not... It doesn't have that movement, and I'm assuming that that's really your track spacer. Your shaper box. I'm not gonna judge it too hard because I don't have your sidechain tools. But if we were to just sidechain this and make some minor gain adjustments, I think that it'll make a huge difference on this track. Let's go ahead and try a sidechain. We're gonna put it on the subgroup where you had your shaper box. I'm gonna go ahead and grab the kick. Let's try to find it. I think it's kick MIDI. Oh, actually, we'll use the ghost kick. You have a preconceived ghost kick, so let's go ahead and use that. Let's see, where is that? Ghost kick. There you go. So I'm going to drag this all the way down, set the attack to 0, and then set the frequency to something like 4 kilohertz. And the reason I'm doing this is because I want it to trigger immediately after it hears anything coming in immediately, and then at a rate of 4,000 hertz or more. So essentially what we're listening for is the click of the kick drum. I have a bunch of videos on how to configure this, but the main reason is to keep the transient short. And we want to make sure that we're really pumping quick with our sidechain. We don't want it to be too long to get that over the top, overbearing sidechain effect. So let's go ahead and play this now. So that already makes a difference, but I definitely want to copy this to all of the basses because I don't have shaper box. We'll just do this to here, and we'll also do it to our lead as well. This really needs it. Unfortunately, the lack of the shaper box is really hurting the way this is perceived. I wish that it wasn't, but just the reality of it, it's kind of changing the perception of the whole song. So sorry about that. I just don't have your sidechain plugin. I believe Trackspacer is also a sidechain, so I'm going to throw this in there as well. So that helps a lot, actually. I want to make some volume adjustments, and what we'll do is we'll go to our master channel here. Let's go ahead and take a Pro L. And the reason I like Pro L is because it allows us to see visually exactly what's going on volume-wise in terms of your balance. So let's go ahead and play this back. I have a suspicion that the kick is too quiet. So you notice how there's not a lot of definition in what's going on here. Let's go ahead and solo our kick and bass. So that's feeling pretty good to me. The kick is at -3 and the bass is way down here at like -15, which is good. You have that definition in the kick and bass. But where we want it is actually in the leads and the other instruments. We don't have that right now. So let's go ahead and pull open the chords. I don't believe I copied the sidechain to the chords, actually. It's contributing to how this is being perceived. I'm going to do that really fast. Sorry about that. It was the same color. I didn't catch it. Now let's just make sure that our kick is consistently louder than everything. Bring our drums in. So you'll notice that the rest of the percussion is actually louder than our kick at certain points. I don't want that to be, so I'm going to actually pull our kick bass group up in volume. Maybe we'll give it like 4 decibels or something, so we're kind of hitting the little peak of neutral, basically, or unison, I should say. And let's go ahead and throw in the basses as well, and let's see how they play with the kick. Okay, so the bass is down here too, and you'll notice that just adding a few decibels to that kick bass group really helps bring that forward, and it solidifies the entire mix. You have a -5.8 here on the master. I'm not sure why you're doing that, but I'm just going to reverse that. And we can turn the gain down if you're listening at home. I'll pull it back a bit. All right, let's check the relationship with kick and drums now. Should be better. Okay, so kick's hitting right at 0, which is what I wanted. And pull the volume of the music down a little bit so you can hear me a bit better. Yeah, so kick's hitting right at 0. We have all the other percussion kind of sitting underneath it, and the bass is sitting lower too. That's feeling a lot better to me. On our kick itself, I think that this is a little bit on the weak side. I would try to add a little bit of high end to this. It feels a little dull. Now I don't have your Puig Tech EQ, so I'm just going to throw this in a group and then apply my own EQ. And what I want to do is add some sharpness to the top end so it has some bite to it to really cut through the mix. Right now it's not. So I'm just going to add some high end. And it's really, there's not enough harmonics here to really make a difference. So I'm going to throw on a saturator. Let's go ahead and give it like 4 decibels of drive. And then let's bring the dry wet down to like a 60%. And then I'm going to do a medium curve and see if this gives us the harmonics we need to really make this feel punchier. So that's a little bit too much. I'm going to pull that back. Let's actually go with the soft sine. And I actually want to do this on the high end. So let's go ahead and bring this up to like 5 kilohertz instead of 1. So it's feeling okay. Let's pull the dry wet back a little bit. It's a little bit overbearing. It's a little bit more high end. Now I'm curious if on that EQ you're actually just removing the high end, because if we can just remove that EQ, it might actually help. Okay, so you're doing something else on that EQ, so I'm not going to remove it. I think just a little bit of that bite is nice. And I quite like this plugin called Fresh Air for adding high harmonics without being super destructive. So we can try that as well instead of the saturator. That might be better. We'll add like maybe 20% in the mids. Hey, like 30% in the highs. It's a really magical plugin. Let's go ahead and disable saturator. Because I'm not loving what this is doing to the low end, so let's revert that change and just use a fresh air. So you have a little bit more click to your kick. This is more of a subjective thing. I like really clicky kicks. So I always gravitate towards adding high end to kicks, but that's just my personal taste. Some people will say that that's like the incorrect way to do it, but I grew up on like Above and Beyond and Dead Mouse, and they're very clicky in their kicks. So yeah, so let's go ahead and check the bass kick now against the other drums. That's the most important thing to reference, and then we'll bring in the mid bass as well. Let's check this out. Something weird is going on with this bass. I'm going to go ahead and unfreeze it. I think I have all of your plugins. And let's see if I can make this sound a little bit less constrained. So right now you're cutting off the fundamental frequency, which is really hurting the sound. I think just let that through and maybe do a shelf instead. If you're trying to do a reduction in the low end, you never want to do like a high pass and cut off all of the fundamental, because it's really going to hurt the integrity of the sound. You just want to do a brief little shelf in the bottom to pull off some low end instead of a really strong curve. At least that's my opinion. Now, something that's happening here is that you have this sub-harmonic here at 30 hertz, and then you have a secondary harmonic here at 70. I'm assuming that you probably have 2 octaves in serum. And you do. So you have the -1 and you have the 0. What I would actually encourage you to try is to not do this on the same track and leave the negative octave to a designated sub bass. That way you have more independent control of the two. Because when you have the 2 fundamentals in the same track, you lose a lot of control. And also, you're just high passing this. You're actually just getting rid of the note that you're adding. So if you're looking to actually, do this, like what you were doing, it's better to just move the note up and actually get rid of that bottom harmonic. And then just not constrain it. It sounds much better to me. And maybe we can get away with, the sine wave, because the sine is not super dense, so you might have like 1 harmonic down here. But something like a saw wave at that low is just going to cloud up your low end. It's not really contributing anything, though. I would actually prefer this here. That sounds much cleaner to me. So, sounding good. Let's go ahead and bring in the subs. Oh, it's actually already in there. That's sounding pretty good. I think on our mid bass we may want a little bit more distortion. It feels very mono to me. It's like in this weird place. Maybe we lose the reverb. Alright, let's lose the dimension. And instead of dimension, maybe we can add some more voices on the side. So like try like a 4 unison. So there's definitely something in this group that's making this mono, and it's really hurting the bass sound. I'm trying to find where it is. If you're in the chat and you can let me know, then let me know where the mono trigger is. But I think that it might be on the bass bus in general. Yeah, this is a bad idea. You never want to collapse all of your mid bass down to mono. The only place you want to really get mono is maybe like 100 hertz and lower. So what I would suggest is maybe the bass mono if you really want to do this. But there's a lot of stereo information from like 150 hertz to like 500 hertz that is where your mid bass really lives. Like if you actually look at where the bass was, you know, it's up here at like 150 to maybe 1K. This is just your basic fundamental. And all of that is getting collapsed to mono, and that's really hurting your bass sound. This idea that all bass has to be in mono is a really outdated outlook, I think. The only reason why you do this is because like in a club or whatever, you have a single sub, like a mono sub channel, and you don't want to have 2 left and right sub channels getting collapsed down to a single channel, because then it'll create phasing problems when you have one big sub array. If you're dealing with anything above subsonic stuff like 120 hertz or whatever, you don't need to collapse it to mono. It's actually just going to hurt your mix, because you're just basically creating phase problems in the upper harmonics for no reason. So use the bass mono click or button here instead of the mono button in general, and you'll get much better results on a mid bass. You can collapse your subs down to full mono, and that's fine. I would just actually encourage you to just use a single oscillator that's only mono to begin with, instead of, you know, adding in stereo width and then collapsing it down with the utility. You're just going to get phase problems because all of the different voices in the stereo field collapse down to mono, just overlaps on top of each other, and then you end up with like a wonky sounding sub bass. It's best to just use a single oscillator in mono, but I digress. You want to keep that sub in mono. You want to keep your mid bass in stereo, so you have that nice, you know, stereo field and stereo depth to the mids, which is crucial. You don't want the whole song to feel mono. So with the new stereoized bass and the sub and the kick, this is what it sounds like. And then I was going to apply a little bit of stereo depth. So I was going to apply some voices in unison, turn the detune down. Maybe this will be cool. Subtle stereo is such a nice effect on like a plucked bass. It's like the dead mouse way. Okay, so let's go ahead and try this with some of our other instruments, like our other drums. This should sound a lot better now. I'm going to pull our mid bass down in volume a little bit here, and then we're going to add some saturation or something to really make this sound more interesting. It's a little bit flat right now. So I'm going to throw on a saturator. Let's give it like, again, 3.5 decibels. Let's do a soft sine and see how this comes out. You can actually really push this and see what happens. You see how the medium curve adds a little bit of bite and harmonics, but it doesn't like completely change the sound. We don't want to like completely shift the sound. We're just mixing right now. So I'm just adding the saturator to add a little bit of coloration and a little bit of harmonics that distortion brings. So cuts through a little bit better now. I like that against the drums and the kick and the bass. Let's go ahead and look at this on our master span now. And let's go ahead and mute the kick out for the moment so that we can actually just visualize how our sub and mid bass look together. This is looking pretty good. I'm not sure why you're in mid side mode. I've never actually used this. I'm just going to put on a new span that doesn't have the mid-side mode. I just want to see the general stereo balance. Let's do this pre-limiter, and let's take a look at that. Okay, so we have this sub here, we have some mids here, but we're losing maybe a little bit here up in like the 2 to 400. I'm gonna give the mid bass a little bit of a boost there. I think that should help. Let's go ahead and bring in our EQ and give it like something like this. I also feel that the sub is not harmonically rich enough. It's only one note. If we mute this mid bass out, you'll see that. And if we actually add some harmonics to this, I think it's going to fill out that low end a little bit better. So instead of just a sine wave like you're doing, let's go ahead and throw some distortion onto that mid sub bass, and it should allow us to add some harmonics to it, and it'll make it a little bit more full down there at the bottom end of the spectrum. So let's go ahead and grab a saturator. Again, a little bit of drive. We don't need too harsh of an algorithm for this. I think just like that's going to fill it up nicely. Let's go ahead and look at an EQ. Let's try soft sine. So I think we need a little bit more than that. Let's go ahead and try a harsher curve. Instead of a saturator, let's actually try an overdrive. This is kind of crazy, but let's see what happens. And on this guy, we can roll off all the top ends, so we don't need all the additional harmonics. We just want some more harmonic information from, 30 hertz to 120. Let's go ahead and A-B that. And let's match for volume, because that's definitely louder now. See how the extra harmonics help it cut a little bit more? It's the small things like that that will really fill out your mix. So I'm going to leave this gain, give it a little bit more gain than what you had it at, and I think this is going to fill out your low end nicely. Let's go ahead and bring our kick, bass, our mids, and our drums in and check that out. I'm a big advocate for pulling mids out of kick drums. It's kind of just like something I've always done, but I think it clears out a lot of mud. I like a kick with a nice sub and a lot of click on the top. I don't like the mids. It feels boxy to me, so I pull a little bit out at like 400 hertz, and I think that sounds really solid now. I might even pull this mid bass back just a bit now. Let's look at our overall volume again. And you can see the kicks are now hitting loudest, and our mid bass is more or less right here. What we can also do is throw a limiter on our mid bass groups so that we have more control of the dynamic range. It feels kind of dynamic right now. See how some hits are hitting at like -15, some are hitting at -6. If we can flatten that out a bit, it's going to make it easier for us to place that. So what we can do is try a limiter on this guy, pre-sidechain. That should be able to let us flatten this out. And I like the Ableton limiter for this, actually. You can see all the dynamic range right here getting crushed. We should be able to visualize that. See how that's much flatter now? Easier to deal with. And of course you have these dips here to reflect the sidechain of the kick, but we're trying to flatten out the peaks of everything. Let's go ahead and push that a little bit further. Maybe like to negative. All right, we can keep this at 3 and we'll pull this back like a decibel. So that's feeling much more consistent to me now. And let's go ahead and check that with our kick bass group now and our drums again. And this should feel really good now. That's definitely fuller. So this is a little bit on the busy side. I think you have too many leads happening at once here. I would try to simplify this. For the sake of time, I'm not going to work on this too much longer, but I think if you just simplified some of the notes and had less going on, it would be stronger here. It's just a lot of simultaneous chord pads, or lead synths, I guess. Sorry, I said chord pad because I soloed the chord. And on top of the chord too, it's probably just going to be really busy. I would just say simplify, use less notes, and make it slower, and I think you'll be better off. Like, if we pulled that lead out, it's going to feel a lot less busy. And with this guy, this is a little bit loud. I'm going to pull this one back and let the high one shine. So that's already feeling a lot better than it did. I don't have enough time to continue working on this, but I think if you send this in next month, we can continue. I like a lot of the ideas here. I cleaned up the mix a lot and made things feel more present, which I think is what this track needed the most. But overall, really, really cool ideas here. I think if I had any critique for you as homework on this one, I think try to simplify some of the elements. Like, there's a lot going on. And oftentimes in music, the best music is the music that doesn't overwhelm and is easier to digest. So this feels challenging to listen to as an objective, like, outside source. It's a lot going on, and it'd be hard to keep track of. There's this amazing rule that Morgan Page put out a few years ago called the Rule of Three, and it's that the human ear can only track a few things effectively. Like, we can listen to a single voice for, however long and keep focus on it very easily. When you add a second voice, we can more or less juggle between the two voices. We are a single track mind beings, so we can't actually listen to two things at once and then get the full scope of both. When you add a third voice, that's when you really start to run into issues, because then your brain has a hard time keeping track, and it has to actively switch between those three things instead of being conscientious about one and two at once. So a good rule of thumb is to never have more than 3 instruments that are, or I should say 3 voices that are taking your attention at any given time. Now there's some finesse to this. Like if you have a bass line and you have a chord pad playing at the same time, and you have the chords and then like the sub note all moving together, I consider that one voice because it's one big instrument spanned across many smaller instruments. But if you have like a lead playing and then you have like a singer playing and you have a lead guitar going at the same time, it becomes distracting. And that's why in rock music and other genres, you don't hear like a lead guitarist soloing over top of a singer. It's just too many things to take your attention at once. And the best music is music that has this foundational element where you have these instruments that are perceived as a single voice, like it's like this bed, as it were, and then you have a lead over top of that you can track and trace easily. The drums don't really count. They kind of just keep the meter going, but you can be really interesting and intricate with drums. When you start doing that, it becomes a voice of its own. So that's just my critique for this one. I think this is a really good song. I love the ideas here. I think that you just got to keep working on it. Simplify a lot of your stuff. Double check your music theory, and keep working on it. I like the concept. I think you can develop this into something really cool. Remember that less is more. All right, so everybody give him a round of applause. This is Bring It Back. Cool track, man. Love it. We're going to move on to our next one. That was a good 40 minutes on one song. Next one we'll try to be a little bit more sparing with our time. But that was an amazing record. Thank you for sending it in. It takes courage to send in every time, and I appreciate you guys actually trusting my opinion enough to actually care about what I say. All right, next up we have Outpost on Iridia. This is our next song. And by the way, Danny, I saw your message. I will check the link again, and we'll download your track, and that'll be the last one of the day. While this loads, if you guys are interested, we're doing a Patreon meetup call. It's going to be today at 1 p.m. Pacific time over on Discord, discord.gg/Julian Gray. All patrons can join in and send in your track for feedback to the community. We have this little circle, and it's a lot of fun. We have a great time, and I can't be more excited about it. It's one of my favorite things we're doing as a channel these days. So if you have some time this afternoon, make sure to hop in. You can submit your tracks over on Discord, and then excuse me. Oh, I don't think I've ever sneezed on stream. You can submit your tracks over on Discord, and we as a community all listen to the tracks, and everybody has an opportunity to check out the songs. So that's that. That's going to be at 1 p.m. today. Again, 1 p.m. today, patron Discord meetup call and feedback circle. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'll see you guys there. And for those of you who aren't patrons, if you go to patreon.com/Julian Gray, you can submit tracks for this stream, future streams, and more. So go ahead and check that out. Links in the bottom. And if you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe as always so you don't miss out on future videos and uploads. So this is our next track, Outpost on Iridia. Let's go ahead and check this thing out. This is going to be our next track of the day. I'm not exactly sure who sent this in. I will, when I pull up the sheet to load in the third track, I will let you know who sent these in because I don't know at the moment. And if you send in tracks for the future, try to put your name in the title so that you know, or so that I know exactly who's sending in tracks instead of just, sending them in. So Infinikid in the chat just confirmed that this one is his track. So Infinikid, Outpost on Iridia. This is bound to be good. He's a great musician. Really enjoy his submissions every time he enters, and excited to check it out. Let's go ahead and play this thing. Oh, the output is not routed correctly. 1 second. I have to load it to 1 and 2. Let's see if this works. There we go. That's sick. That's really good, man. Man, this is so good. I would totally put this out on Gradient. Sheesh. That's good. So good. Oh man, you know my weakness. Bells are my weakness. So good. This breakbeat stuff is so underrated. just gonna let this play out. I'm really enjoying it. You guys like this one? That's so sick, man. Sometimes I get tracks on here that I just don't have that much critique for. I mean, I should have like a button I can press, like almost like this, that I use for like the subscribe for like, you see what I did there? But I should do a button like that where it's like fixed, because this is already done. I think I don't have any critique on the production or the mix. I think that the writing is really cool, very unique. It gives me Matt Lang almost. It sounds like something that Matt would do, maybe like Atlas, a little bit groovier than something he would do, but it has that kind of energy, especially in the percussion. I love this track. Like I said in the beginning, this is the type of thing I would put out on Gradient. The quality is amazing. My only critique of the entire thing that I could even mention is really that the arrangement is long in the tooth. It kind of took 2 minutes for any change to happen. And take this with a grain of salt, because I'm like a pop writer. I like to write like, pop, progressive, pop, melodic, techno, and that kind of stuff. And my arrangements are like 3 minutes. This is like 8 minutes almost, and it just feels long in the tooth to me. Like, this doesn't need to be as long as it does without, or as long as it is without any sort of meaningful change or addition. You could probably like collapse this whole thing down to like 5 minutes, and it would still be like the same ideas conveyed. I'm generally in the camp of like efficiency in terms of arrangement, like trying to get the point across in as little time as you need to, just because you lose attention when you have longer songs. A lot of people don't like to listen to longer songs. I remember back when I was like in middle school, I was first discovering deadmau5 and Daft Punk. There was tracks that were like 8 minutes, and my friends would get lost. Like, they'd be like, I where's the drop, as it were? Like, can you skip to the drop? And I appreciate longer music, and a lot of people do, but there's always going to be that general listener that doesn't like longer songs. So generally, I like to keep things as concise as I can, like try to consolidate where I can and make things shorter and still get to the point. This felt a little bit long to me. Like, this first 2 minutes was probably the biggest offender of that. It just kind of felt like it was carrying on. I felt like it could probably have been like 30, 45 seconds. And, probably the same for the latter half. I also felt there wasn't like a hugely climactic moment. Again, this is taken with a grain of salt, obviously, because I'm a big like dynamic in the arrangement type of writer. I like really dramatic breakdowns and really big drops, as it were. But for me, this felt like it didn't have like a hugely climactic part. This last drop with the lead over top of it is a nice payoff, but I felt as though it took a little bit longer to get there, and it wasn't enough to really justify the length. So that's just something to consider. I think that you have all the components here. It's just a matter of getting the arrangement to a point where it doesn't feel as long in the tooth. And by doing that, you're going to maximize the amount of things or the dynamics of things that, feel like they're too low or too soft. Or like, for example, if you listen to Deadmau5 Strobe, a lot of listeners love how long it is. But if you take like the first 30 seconds and then immediately cut to the next 45 seconds, there's going to be this dynamic shift. It's going to have this energy lift, for better or for worse. Like, that's not how the song was supposed to be written. I'm just using it as a point of proof of concept. The parts don't change. The arrangement influences how you perceive the parts, right? So if you can get the arrangement right with this, I think you have all the components here. Just remove some of the transitionary stuff that makes it feel slower and softer, and try to do more intentional, like hard dynamic shifts, and it's going to make your arrangement feel more interesting and more engaging over time. If you think of like house music, right, like on the dance floor, something as simple as filtering the low end out for 8 bars and then bringing it back completely resets the way you perceive that same exact loop, right? You can be listening to the exact same loop for 30 seconds or 30 minutes. Maybe not 30 minutes, maybe like 3 minutes. And then you filter it up for like 16 bars, and then you filter it back down, and then it's the same exact loop, but it redrops, quote unquote, and it feels high energy again, even though it's the same exact thing. So just use that to your advantage and keep that in mind. Like, I think that you can afford to trim some of the length here and make the parts you already have more intentional in the way they fall into place. So that's my really only critique on this. I think this is a beautifully written track. The percussion is great. The writing is awesome. I don't want to, quote unquote, fix it because I don't think it needs anything. Again, I should really have a button on the screen that I can like press, or it's like, this is great, or like, not necessary. I'll have to animate something for future streams. But this is a great record, man. I love it. I hope you share this with the group later today in our Patreon meetup call, because it's a really beautiful song, and I'd love everybody to hear it. So with that being said, I'm not going to work on this one. I think that you have my critique. I think the only thing is the arrangement. Try to get that a little bit stronger in terms of like dynamic shift. So you have some bigger moments and softer moments. I love the breakdown, but I think within the drops and the verse sections, I think you could use like, a little something, as it were. All right. This is Outpost on Arcadia by Infinikid. Great song. Everybody give him a little clappy clap in the chat if you're still with me. And we'll move on to our third and final track of the day, because I have a meetup call that we have to make in the next hour, and I want to have a little gap between that and this. So that was awesome, as usual. We're going to pull in our third track of the day. It's the one I just downloaded from, I believe his name was Danny, and it's called Rasta Man. We're going to open that up, and we'll check it out. And don't you love that we don't have any audio issues today? It's amazing. For some reason, it's just working in our favor the past few streams. No problems. This is great. Yeah, amazing. I'm going to take this opportunity while this loads to tell you about my new song. I have a new record coming out this Friday. You're going to hear a teaser for probably tomorrow or Tuesday. And it's techno. Finally coming back to my roots a little bit. It's like that Mousetrap, IO, Alpha 9 type techno vibe. I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. Keep your eyes peeled. Tomorrow, you should hear about it. If not tomorrow, then maybe Tuesday. It's a remix, and it's something that I played on Group Therapy a few years ago. So if you are a hardcore fan of Julian Gray, you'll probably be familiar with it. And you'll be excited to hear it finally come to fruition. So just wanted to tell you about that before we hop into our last project of the day here. This is Rasta Man by Danny Baca, and he's in the chat. We have a message from Corvus. I want to share some tracks, but I only have unfinished idea project files. And that's perfectly fine, man. If you in the future want to submit to one of these streams, you can always send me unfinished stuff. Just tell me that is unfinished so that the people know and aren't expecting a finished track. I know it takes courage to submit to these streams, but I'm a firm believer that we have a strong community here that just, they respect the process, as it were. All right, Rasta Man, let's check this thing out and get to work on it. And if we need to change anything, we will do so. Let's go ahead and give it a play.
Rasta man, there's a feeling. Rasta man can't believe it. Hearing how shade the flow. Let the beat control rhythm go. I know that I cannot control. Everybody do the rhythm roll. What you wanna do about it? I'm not feeling so loose, I doubt it. Rasta man, there's a feeling. Rasta man can't believe it. Hearing how shade the flow. Let the beat
Rasta Man. Hell yeah.
Everybody do the rhythm roll. What you wanna do about it? I'm not feeling so loose, I doubt it. Rastaman is a feeling. Rastaman can't believe it. Hearing how shit the flow. Let the beat control rhythm go. I know that I cannot control. Everybody do the rhythm roll. What you wanna do about it? I'm not feeling so loose, I doubt it. Rastaman is a feeling. Rastaman can't believe it.
Oh yeah. All right. Rasta Man, the banger. All right. I love when we get house music on these streams. I'm excited to work on this. The vocal is awesome. I see it's an evolution of sound vocal. Shout out to my boy Zen World. That's my boy. We used to collab on videos and stuff, and he's always been supportive of my my material. So love that guy. Danny, thank you for the submission. Garden Sounds in the chat, fellow YouTuber, actually on Twitch. That's funny, you're on Twitch, man. Good to see you. On this one, I want to try to adjust the mix. I think that the writing is cool. I don't love the bass sound design. I think that we can maybe work on that a little bit too, but I think predominantly it's mixed stuff that's really going to make a huge difference on this. So first things first, I want to try to look at our drums. That's essential to house music. So let's go ahead and give this a watch. So I personally feel the hat is too dull. I think this is the hat. It just doesn't feel bright enough for me. I might throw on like a fresh air. Just adds that sparkle in the top that it really needs. And it's actually the same on the shaker. I just feel like some of these hi-hats just don't have that like bright sparkle that it needs. So I'm going to try a little bit of air. And this guy has a lot of low mid too, so I'm going to pull that down. I guess not low mid, but like upper mid. Let's do that with a shelf. And here we go. Let's do that pre-fresh air. And I actually don't love this sample because you have... Oh, I guess I can unfreeze this. I don't have wider, but I don't think it's necessary. It might actually be hurting you. This is a bad idea. The reason for that is because a hi-hat is like a sparkly bright element, and you don't want to push it back as much as you're doing here. I think if anything, you want to remove some high end, I would say do this with a shelf like this. You never want to like cut the top end off of a hi-hat. That's like the quintessential part of a hi-hat. So just brightening up the hats a bit helped so much already. It didn't really... I mean, we didn't do that much, but it really made a huge difference. And I feel that the hi-hat is a little bit quiet. I advise against doing your automation on the volume track itself because I can't instinctually turn this up. I have to go into the chain and turn it up. I always advise doing volume adjustments with a gain utility, actually turning it down here. But that's okay. We'll do this for now, and we'll flip the script. I'll turn this up here. Let's give this like 3 decibels. You want to make sure that that lead up hat is like way out in the front, so that's what I'm doing here. And then let's go ahead and throw in our kick again. And I don't believe in putting your kick into the same group as your other instruments. It's just not a great idea because you lose a lot of control. I'll leave it how it is for now for this project, but I encourage you in the future to try to split the kick off into its own thing. So kick feels kind of soft to me. Let's go ahead and look at this on the Pro L. And let's mute the hi-hats and clap. So the kick's hitting right at 0, and the hi-hat and clap are hitting probably a little bit louder than that. So I'm going to pull the clap and hi-hat down like 2 decibels here. I know that I just added gain on the hi-hat group, but I want it to be placed relative to the kick. So I want the kick to be louder always. Now this kick is just not hitting as much as it should be. I think if we add a little bit of high end to it, it could help. It just feels a little bit dull. So I'm going to try a little bit of overdrive. Like a 12%, just the top end. Gives it a little bit of bite up here. And that should help us out a little bit. I'm assuming that this is a different kick for a reason. Looks like the filtered version. And the drums are now feeling pretty good to me. I think the kick also has like a little bit of mid mud like around here. So I'm going to pull that down. And again, this is a Julian Gray subjective thing. Some people really like mid-centric, like knocky kicks. I'm really into like really soft, not soft, but like really light touch, like click in the high end, sub in the bottom, no mids. Some people really like that boxy sound. I'm not really into it. So my stream, I fix it how I want. So that's your drums, and let's take a look at this bass group. I think that this is something that really needs the most work. So we won't really touch this as much. I'm going to actually swap your LFO tool out for just a regular sidechain. You can use LFO tool, but I just want to put it towards the end of the chain, and LFO tool has lag problems if you don't re-trigger it with MIDI. If you're using it later in the chain where there's a lot of latency presented. So I'm just going to set the threshold to nothing, attack to nothing, EQ to like 5 kilohertz, and then we should only be listening for the click. Yep. I actually want this to duck a little bit more when it hits, so I'm going to turn up the gain on the input. Yep. And let's give this some more gain. On a track level, there we go. Let's copy this sidechain to the other ones. So this one, I have no idea why you're cutting all the high end off, because the sharpness of a bass is actually all in the high end. You don't ever want to do this. Like that's where all your clarity and harmonics are. Let's remove this EQ altogether, and let's just add some overdrive to actually add high end. And let's check out our wide bass, see what this is all about. Again, I'm going to remove the high cut, or the low pass, sorry. And let's go ahead and add a shelf. And that's already better. Just by turning up the bass and adding some high harmonics, it's just like infinitely better. Let's put the kick back. And let's throw a sidechain on our wide bass too. And I almost want to transient shape this bass group because it's so plucky. I think that it could really do well with like a transient shaper from like Kilohertz. Really solid plugin if you don't have it. Underrated. Let's just get some attack going and make it a little bit faster. And we don't want it to pump too much. We just want to accentuate those initial transients. And I would say even like aside from the sub, I want to actually process the basses together. So I'm actually going to group these, call this like mid bass, and we're going to actually move the side chain to the mid bass. Let's remove it on here. And then on the mid bass pre-side chain, I want to actually compress these two together. So we have like a more solid, more compressed sound. And I think this is going to help you a lot. For the same reason like we did on the previous song today, I think that this is just too dynamic. Okay, so you're actually already compressing it. Let's go ahead and take a look at this one alone. Let's reveal more of this low end. Again, not a great idea to cut the fundamental off. And then on the group, I'm I'm going to push that even more, maybe a little bit of saturation instead of compression, because it is already kind of flat. Make sure to gain stage so that you know that you're actually doing something effective. I'm just going to turn this up a bit. And let's put the drums back in. I want to give that release a little bit more just so it has like more of a pump feel. I think it's really going to help. All right, let's put the other stuff back in and see if we can get those sounding good. So the bass, the sub is a little bit quiet. I'm going to give it some more of the high fundamentals back, or high harmonics back. It's kind of nice. Let's put this back too. I think just like a nice side chain on this will help a lot too. Not as aggressive as the bass. It's got a little bit more aggro on this LFO tool. Don't be afraid to be really strong-handed with the LFO tool. It'll really help make the track pump and give it more energy. Okay, so let's unsolo everything and see if that helps the whole thing. Bass is feeling too loud to me now compared to the drums, so I'm going to pull this back like 3 decibels. You got some pretty intense mastering going on here. I highly advise not doing as much as you are on the master and just try to keep it a little simpler. It's probably coloring it a lot. This is a bad idea too. Never high pass or low pass your whole mix like that. It's just a bad idea. Same for this. You never want to lose 20 hertz. It's just like like a huge club or a huge festival system goes all the way down to like 10. Your tracks are just getting weaker. There's no reason to do that anymore. I'm just simplifying your master chain a little bit here. I don't think you need as much as you do. Cool. That helped. That's hitting much more, especially in the low end. Some of these instruments I feel you could make more interesting with like some distortion. And maybe like some reverb or something, like a... Oh, you're actually not even using that. Oh well. It's kind of cool actually, but whatever. I just want to find that snare, and I think I'm gonna call this a wrap. I think this adjustments we did make are really helpful. There it is. A little bit less in the low mids on that snare. And then I think this lead has a little bit too much lows in it too. It's just kind of heavy. It should be lighter on its feet, I think. So something like this. I would say pull that back and make the bass kind of the lead here. I'm very curious what pack that vocal's from. It's really funny. I love it. Love the Rasta vibes. It's super sick. So yeah, I think that's where I'm gonna call it a wrap on this project. I really love this, man. Thank you for submitting it today. I hope to see you in our call after this. Great track. The writing is really cool. I love the vocal, as I keep saying. I think it really just needed some mixing to really pull it together, and that's the case for a lot of musicians, right? It's like getting the mix and like the final 20% done. I know that's like challenging, but it's something that you'll build with time. Like as you write music for a long period of time, your mixing ears and your production ears and your arranging ears will all, formulate, and you'll get that finesse. Just takes time. And the right listening environment, the right referencing, like if you're listening in a bad environment, you're never going to, make those huge leaps in your mixing or mastering or whatever. But if you are listening in a great studio, I always say like a great engineer will do an okay mix on like a really bad studio, but a mediocre engineer can do a really good mix on a great studio or like a really good listening environment. Like I am working on some material for an upcoming project, and I've been working in a friend of mine's studio, and I really just don't enjoy how it sounds. He has this like $1 million studio, and it's a beautiful space, but it's hard for me to mix music there because I'm not a fan of his speakers for one, but also like the format and the layout and where the sound is coming from. It doesn't really translate well to the way I perceive music. So I can't mix it all in there. And it's just kind of a testament to the importance of your listening environment and, the external factors as well. It's not just all about the skill. Sometimes it really does come down to the minimum threshold on the hardware. So if you guys are interested and you have some time after this call, in about 30 minutes, we're going to have a meetup call over on Discord. It's going to be a very similar idea to this, where you submit your projects. Actually, you don't submit your project file, you submit your audio files. So it's not exactly like this, but it's similar in that you submit your projects for feedback. I keep saying projects, but you submit your songs for feedback. There's a big group of people in a large call, almost like Clubhouse kind of style. And we all take turns giving feedback to everybody's submission. So we all listen through and check that out. So if you're interested in participating in our little meetup call today, it takes place at 1 p.m. Pacific time. All you have to do is become a patron of the channel, and you are eligible to join in on the feedback circle. And we do these every month, as well as Fix Your Project over on Discord. And I hope to see some of you guys there. Again, it's patreon.com/JulianGray. And if you want to join in on the call, it's discord.gg/JulianGray. That's going to be in a half hour. If you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. I always have new videos and new live streams coming up like this. So make sure to subscribe and like the video if you did enjoy it today. Really looking forward to seeing a lot of you over on Discord in the next half hour. So anyway, guys, that kind of wraps up today's Fix Your Project stream. I hope you enjoyed. These streams have been going off without a hitch now, and some of the submissions you guys have been sending me have been really awesome. I'm really enjoying the music that the community has been writing, and I always look forward to hearing your new material, whether it's in a Fix Your Project stream or in one of our Patreon Discord meetups. I hope you all are doing well. I hope you guys enjoy the Halloween holiday season. It's my partner's favorite season, so we always have a really great time here. And I will see those of you who are joining in over on Discord in a half hour. So I'm Julian of Julian Gray Media. I will see you guys in the next video over on YouTube and Twitch, and I will talk to you then. Bye-bye.